terms of, do you want to go to central sewer or do you want to do land-based? Special protection waters is definitely a big deal, and they really limit you on point discharges from a wastewater treatment plant. DEP is pretty adamant right now about land-based applications. Now that won't work all the time. Arrowhead, that's my client for 10 years, that was not a viable alternative, but we still had to look at it. We still had to look at adjacent lands. Could lands be purchased? Could you run a line for, again, spray irrigation, drip irrigation, those type of things? Inside Arrowhead is, this was a subdivision done in the 50s, 60s. It has basically quarter-acre lots. They're very, very small. They have certain areas that are sewered, certain areas can be sewered. They actually ran into a problem. They put in some sewer lines and didn't get an approval for it, so that wound up to be why we were doing an update to the FISIP 37 plan. But there were conditions there. There's high groundwater, there's shallow bedrock, there's very, very small lots. The original subdivision did not allow for parcels, community parcels, community-owned parcels rather than private-owned, to function as a land-based wastewater application. So, but you have to look at all those things. You have to you have to prove that those aren't viable alternatives. That's really, really important. And that's, again, that's the professional input needed in these type of plants.
Was there any discussion in the report on the effect of removing water from the lake in order to fuel this thing, or to provide the basic action, or is that not part of it?
I didn't see anything talking about that. What you're talking is basically a water balance, or it's really a water balance, which is basically, if you have a well, you're taking water out of the ground. If you have land-based applications proximate, or basically recharging that aquifer, then you kind of have a cycle going on. If you're putting in a central sewer system and basically sending that water to another basin, or even further downstream in the basin or outside of that aquifer recharge, you can have a losing aquifer, basically, that eventually the groundwater, and again, there's variabilities, seasonal variabilities, there's annual variabilities, there's different things. We had a very wet spring, we have a very dry summer, early summer, so but you're looking at long-term recharge, losing, that type of thing. And so that is something. Now that's part of why DEP says we want land-based, we want on-lot, we don't want central sewers. And that's basically part of when I was working on Arrowhead's plans. That is something that we talked about in our geology section. We talked about that type of thing. In fact, the superficial geology, or there's more or less a perched water table, and a land-based system not necessarily gets into the potable water aquifer. So, but you have to look at that geology. You need to, really think about how that water cycle is working.
Well, and the reason why they like it is because it's neutral, because the water that you take out of the system gets put back in, because you're putting it right back into the ground where it came from. You're not sending it down to Tunkhannock Creek.
That's the theory, yes.
And that's why they like it.
Which, it holds up in some cases, it doesn't in others, but it's something that you look at, yeah.
With those systems, do people retain their tanks for the solid waste and just send the gray water?
In what condition?
In that kind of spray system that you're talking about, or land-based, decentralized system? Well,
the land-based applications would have to have treatment prior to spray or drip irrigation.
Mm-hmm.
The spray and drip is basically where do you put the water once it's been treated. So you would still have maybe a package plant or something like that, but it wouldn't necessarily go to a centralized plant for a larger area. Yes.
Did you look at the mechanics of the plan at all? Did you see the plan that was proposed? The central sewage system plan that was proposed for Lake Erin?
No, I didn't see anything in terms of design calculations